Sometime around 2,000 years ago, a group of foreigners arrived in Jerusalem asking a dangerous question. Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him. These weren't ordinary travelers. They were the Magi, mysterious figures from the east who had followed a celestial phenomenon across hundreds of miles of desert to find a newborn child they believed would change the world. But who were these enigmatic visitors? Were they really three kings bearing gifts? Were they Persian priests? Babylonian astronomers? And what exactly was this star they followed? Was it a real astronomical event or purely symbolic? Today we're diving deep into one of history's most famous mysteries, the identity and journey of the Magi. And I promise you, the historical reality is far more fascinating than the nativity scenes suggest. From ancient Persian Zoroastrianism to cutting-edge astronomical research, from Roman historical sources to recent archaeological discoveries, we're going to explore what we actually know and what remains tantalizingly mysterious about these legendary figures. So settle in, because we're about to journey back 2,000 years to uncover the truth behind the Magi. The Greek historian Herodotus, writing in the 5th century BCE, describes the Magi as one of the 6 tribes of the Medes who specialized in religious rituals, dream interpretation, and the reading of celestial omens. He tells us they were powerful religious figures who advised Persian kings and played crucial roles in coronation ceremonies. Now, our primary source for the Christmas story is the Gospel of Matthew, written sometime between 70 to 90 CE. And here's something interesting. Matthew never says there were 3 Magi. He doesn't call them kings. He doesn't even give their names. The text simply says Magi from the east arrived in Jerusalem. The tradition of 3 Magi named Caspar, Melchior, and Balthazar. That developed centuries later, probably because 3 gifts were mentioned: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Early Christian traditions actually varied wildly. Some Syrian sources claim there were 12 Magi. So where did they come from? Matthew says, from the east. Given the context and the Magi's association with Persia, scholars generally agree they likely came from either the Parthian Empire, which controlled Persia at the time, or possibly the region of Mesopotamia, which had a strong tradition of astronomical observation. Here's what's crucial to understand. Whether Persian or Babylonian, the Magi would have been trained in astronomical observation. Both Persian and Mesopotamian priestly traditions maintained detailed records of celestial events. They tracked planetary movements, predicted eclipses, and believed that unusual celestial phenomena signaled important earthly events, particularly the birth or death of significant rulers. If they were Zoroastrian Magi, they would have been part of a religious tradition that emphasized the cosmic struggle between light and darkness, that practiced elaborate purification rituals, and that maintained sacred fires in their temples. Zoroastrianism also had messianic expectations, prophecies about future saviors called Saoshyants, who would renew the world. This might explain why foreign priests would be looking for a significant birth in a distant land. Now let's tackle the biggest question. What was the Star of Bethlehem? Was it real or purely theological symbolism? Modern astronomers and historians have proposed several fascinating explanations, and recent research has added some compelling evidence to this ancient mystery. Theory 1. The triple conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn. The most widely discussed astronomical explanation involves a rare series of planetary conjunctions, when planets appear very close together in the night sky. In 7 BCE, something extraordinary happened. Jupiter and Saturn appeared to pass each other 3 times over the course of several months, all within the constellation of Pisces. This is called a triple conjunction, and it's quite rare. It won't happen again until 2239. Here's why this matters. In ancient Babylonian and Persian astronomical astrology, Jupiter was associated with kingship. Saturn was connected to the Jews based on their observance of Saturday, Saturn's day, and Pisces was linked to the land of Judea. So, to a trained Magi astronomer, a triple conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn in Pisces could be interpreted as a great king will be born among the Jews. The astronomer Michael Molnar has done extensive research showing that ancient astrologers would have considered this an extremely significant omen. And it occurred in 7 BCE, right within the range of when Jesus is thought to have been born. Theory 2, a comet. Some scholars have suggested the star might have been a comet. Chinese astronomical records, which are remarkably detailed, mention a comet visible in 5 BCE and another in 4 BCE. Comets were considered highly significant omens in the ancient world, usually portents of major change or the death of kings. The challenge with this theory is that in ancient Near Eastern tradition, comets were typically seen as bad omens, not positive signs of a divine birth. Theory 3, a supernova or nova. A nova or supernova, an exploding star that suddenly becomes extremely bright, could also explain the phenomenon. Chinese and Korean astronomical records mention several unusual stellar events around this time period. A nova could appear suddenly, shine brilliantly for weeks or months, and then fade away, matching some aspects of the biblical account. However, we haven't found definitive evidence of a supernova in the right place and time, though astronomical records from this period are incomplete. Theory 4, a combination. Some researchers propose that what we're reading about is actually a combination of astronomical events compressed into a single narrative. The Magi might have first noticed the Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions in 7 BCE, began their journey, and then witnessed additional celestial phenomena, like the Jupiter-Venus conjunction, as they traveled, creating a series of celestial signs that guided them. Modern planetarium software allows us to recreate the exact positions of planets, stars, and other celestial objects at any point in history. When we run simulations for the years 7 to 2 BCE, we do indeed find a remarkable series of rare astronomical events that ancient astronomers would have noticed and considered significant. What's particularly interesting is that the level of astronomical knowledge required to recognize these events as significant matches exactly what we know Babylonian and Persian Magi possessed. These weren't casual stargazers, they were trained professionals who had studied astronomical tables and omen texts for years, if not decades. So if the Magi did make this journey, what would it have actually involved? The journey from the Persian heartland around Ctesiphon, near modern Baghdad, to Jerusalem is roughly 800–900 miles. From more distant parts of the Parthian Empire, it could be over 1,000 miles. On foot or by camel caravan, traveling perhaps 15 to 20 miles per day, this would take 2 to 3 months minimum. Now here's the political context that's often overlooked. The Parthian Empire and Rome were rivals. They'd been fighting on and off for decades, with their border roughly along the Euphrates River. For high-status Persian Magi to travel into Roman client territory would have been politically significant, possibly even risky. The most likely route would follow the Silk Road and ancient trade routes west from Persia, probably through Palmyra or Damascus, then south into Judea. These were well-established routes that merchant caravans used regularly, but they weren't exactly safe. Travelers needed protection, supplies, and probably letters of safe passage. Archaeological evidence shows that important travelers in this period wouldn't journey alone. They'd travel with a substantial retinue, servants, guards, pack animals carrying supplies, and possibly merchants or other travelers for protection. When Matthew says the Magi came from the east, we should probably picture a significant caravan, not just 3 guys on camels. When they arrived in Jerusalem, Matthew tells us they went straight to King Herod's palace, which makes perfect sense. High-status foreign visitors asking about a king of the Jews would naturally approach the current king. Archaeological excavations of Herod's palaces in Jerusalem and Jericho give us a sense of the opulent, paranoid world they entered. Herod the Great, who ruled Judea from 37 to 4 BCE, was notorious for his paranoia about rivals. He'd already killed several of his own sons over succession fears. The idea of foreign priests claiming a new king had been born would have terrified him, which explains his violent reaction in the biblical account. Bethlehem was a small village about 6 miles south of Jerusalem, maybe a few hundred people. The arrival of foreign Magi with their retinue would have been a major event. Recent archaeological work in Bethlehem has revealed the scale of settlement in the 1st century BCE, though definitive evidence of specific events is, unsurprisingly, impossible to find. Let's talk about those famous gifts: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. What did these actually mean in the ancient world? Gold, obviously, was precious and valuable then as now. But in the ancient Near East, gold was specifically associated with royalty and divinity. Temple decorations used gold, royal regalia featured gold, and gold was offered to gods. The gift of gold acknowledged Jesus as a king. Frankincense was even more interesting. This aromatic resin comes from boswellia trees that grow in southern Arabia and the Horn of Africa, particularly modern Yemen, Oman, and Somalia. It was used extensively in religious rituals, burned as incense in temples throughout the ancient world. Here's the thing: frankincense was incredibly expensive. The incense route was one of the most important trade networks of the ancient world, and frankincense was so valuable it was literally worth more than gold by weight in some markets. Recent archaeological excavations along the incense route in Saudi Arabia and Oman have revealed the scale of this trade network. In Jewish tradition, frankincense was burned in the temple in Jerusalem as an offering to God, so this gift acknowledged Jesus as divine, or at least as someone worthy of worship. Myrrh, also from Arabia, had multiple uses. It was used in perfumes, in embalming and burial preparations, and in medicine. It was another expensive, imported luxury. But myrrh's association with death and burial makes it a somewhat ominous gift for a newborn. Early Christian tradition saw this as foreshadowing Jesus' death. Here's what's significant from a historical perspective. All 3 gifts were luxury items from international trade networks. Gold came through various routes, but frankincense and myrrh came specifically from southern Arabia, a trade that passed through both Persian and Nabatean, Arab territory, before reaching the Mediterranean world. The fact that the Magi could access these gifts tells us they were wealthy, well-connected individuals with access to international luxury trade. These weren't humble wanderers, these were elite figures bringing gifts appropriate for royalty. To really understand who the Magi were, we need to understand Zoroastrianism, one of the world's oldest monotheistic religions, and the faith that the Persian Magi likely practiced. Zoroastrianism was founded by the prophet Zarathustra, Zoroaster in Greek, probably sometime between 1500 to 1000 BCE in ancient Persia. The religion taught that there was one supreme god, Ahura Mazda, the wise lord, who was locked in cosmic struggle against Angra Mainyu, the destructive spirit. Zoroastrian priests, the Magi, maintained sacred fires that burned continuously, performed elaborate purification rituals, and recited sacred hymns from their scripture, the Avesta. They were responsible for all major religious ceremonies, including funerals, weddings and seasonal festivals. But crucially for our story, Magi were also trained in astronomy. Zoroastrianism emphasized the importance of celestial bodies. The sun, moon and stars were seen as part of Ahura Mazda's good creation. Tracking celestial movements and understanding astronomical cycles was part of their religious duty. Zoroastrianism had its own messianic prophecies. The faith taught that future saviors called Saoshyants would be born to renew the world and defeat evil. Some traditions spoke of a final Saoshyant who would bring about the ultimate victory of good over evil. Scholars have long noted that during the Babylonian exile, 6th century BCE, when many Jews lived in Persia, there was significant religious and cultural exchange. Some concepts in later Jewish theology, like angels, demons, resurrection, and apocalyptic final battles, may have been influenced by Zoroastrian ideas or developed in parallel. So here's a possibility. What if the Magi had heard about Jewish messianic prophecies through cultural exchange? What if they interpreted certain Jewish scriptures through a Zoroastrian lens and saw parallels with their own Saoshyant expectations? When they observed the rare astronomical signs, they might have concluded that a promised savior, meaningful in both traditions, was being born. This would explain why foreign priests would undertake such a difficult journey to honor a Jewish child. They weren't just following a star out of curiosity, they were pursuing their own religious expectations about a cosmic savior, expressed through their understanding of celestial omens. So how did we get from Matthew's brief account of unnamed Magi from the east to the familiar story of three kings named Caspar, Melchior, and Balthasar? The earliest Christian art, from Roman catacombs in the 2nd and 3rd centuries, shows the Magi in Persian clothing, trousers, and Phrygian caps, emphasizing their foreign origin. Early depictions show anywhere from 2 to 12 Magi. The names Caspar, Melchior, and Balthasar first appear in a 6th century Greek manuscript, though they weren't standardized until much later. By the medieval period, Christian tradition had settled on 3 Magi, largely because of the 3 gifts mentioned in Matthew. The transformation of the Magi into kings happened gradually. It was influenced by passages in the Psalms and the book of Isaiah that spoke of kings bringing gifts and bowing before God's chosen one. By the medieval period, they were regularly depicted wearing crowns and royal robes. Medieval tradition also made them representatives of the known world, one European, one Asian, one African, symbolizing that all peoples would come to worship Christ. Renaissance art often shows Balthasar as a black African king, though this has no basis in earlier tradition. By the 12th century, relics claimed to be the bones of the 3 kings were enshrined in Cologne Cathedral in Germany, which became a major pilgrimage site. The cult of the 3 kings became enormously popular in medieval Europe. The Feast of Epiphany, celebrated on January the 6th, commemorates the Magi's visit. In many cultures, this became more important than Christmas itself. In Spain and Latin America, children traditionally receive gifts on Epiphany, not Christmas, in memory of the Magi's gifts. Modern biblical scholarship has led to renewed interest in the historical context of the Magi story. Scholars now emphasize understanding the account in its 1st century Jewish and Greco-Roman context, looking at what astronomical knowledge, trade routes, and religious ideas would have been available to Matthew's audience. Recent archaeological discoveries and astronomical research have given us new tools to investigate the historical plausibility of various elements. While we may never have definitive proof, we now have a much richer understanding of what the journey of learned Persian or Babylonian priests to Judea around the turn of the 1st millennium would actually have entailed. Where does this leave us? What can we confidently say about the mysterious Magi? Here's what we know. The term Magi referred to Persian priestly scholars who practiced Zoroastrianism and were trained in astronomical observation. Both Persian and Babylonian traditions maintained sophisticated astronomical records and believed celestial events signaled important earthly occurrences. We know there were indeed rare and significant astronomical events in the years 7 to 2 BCE, particularly the triple conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn in 7 BCE and the Jupiter-Venus conjunctions in 302 BCE. Ancient astronomers would have noticed these events and might well have interpreted them as omens of a significant royal birth. We know the journey from Persia or Mesopotamia to Judea was entirely feasible along established trade routes, though it would have been long, expensive, and potentially dangerous. High-status travelers would have needed substantial resources and retinue. We know the gifts mentioned, gold, frankincense, and myrrh, were appropriate luxury offerings for royalty and were available through international trade networks that Persian or Parthian elites could access. And we know there was cultural and religious exchange between Persian and Jewish communities, particularly after the Babylonian exile, which could explain why Zoroastrian priests might be interested in Jewish messianic prophecies. What we don't know, the exact number of Magi, their individual identities, their precise point of origin, exactly which astronomical event or events they followed, or many other specific details. The story has been elaborated and embellished over 2 millennia, from Persian astrologer priests to 3 kings representing all humanity. But at its core, the account describes something that's historically plausible. Learned foreigners from the East, trained in astronomical observation, who interpreted celestial signs according to their religious and scientific traditions, and who traveled to Judea seeking a prophesied king. What makes this story so enduring isn't just its religious significance. It's the profound idea that wise people from a completely different culture and religion would recognize something universal, something transcendent, and would journey across the known world to honor it. Whether you approach this as history, theology, or legend, the story of the Magi represents the ancient world's interconnectedness, the way ideas, beliefs, and knowledge traveled along trade routes, the way astronomical observation crossed cultural boundaries, and the way different religious traditions sometimes found unexpected common ground. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the mystery of the Magi, please hit that like button and subscribe. We've got upcoming videos on Persian Zoroastrianism, ancient astronomical traditions, and the historical world of 1st century Judea. What do you think the Star of Bethlehem was? Do you find the astronomical explanations convincing? And what other biblical or historical mysteries should we investigate? Thanks for watching, and remember, the past is full of mysteries, waiting to be explored with the tools of modern scholarship.